On October 31st, 2025, while Americans were busy arguing about whether candy corn is edible, something happened that could reshape the entire global financial system. And nobody was paying attention. The BRICS nations, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and their new friends, quietly launched a pilot program for something called the unit. No, it's not a new Netflix show. It's a gold-backed digital currency designed to do one thing: kill the US dollar's global dominance. Now, before you click away thinking, oh, great, another dollar collapse video, stick with me. Because what I'm about to show you isn't speculation. It isn't conspiracy theory. This is happening right now, and the data is absolutely wild. 90% of trade between Russia and China now happens without a single US dollar involved. Google searches for dollar debasement just hit an all-time high, and the United States is staring down $38 trillion in debt. That's trillion with a T, as in this is terrifying. So grab your coffee, cancel your plans, and let's talk about why 2026 might be the year everything changes. All right, let's start with some context, because if you don't understand why BRICS is doing this, none of it makes sense. For about 80 years, the US dollar has been the king of global currencies, the top dog, the head honcho, the Beyonce of money. After World War II, the world got together at this fancy resort in New Hampshire called Bretton Woods. Sounds like a place where rich people play golf, and honestly, it probably was. And they decided, hey, America didn't get bombed to pieces, their economy is massive, let's just use their currency for everything. And that system worked, mostly. The dollar became the world's reserve currency. What does that mean? It means when Saudi Arabia sells oil to Japan, they don't use yen or reals, they use dollars. When Brazil buys electronics from South Korea, dollars. When anyone does anything in international trade, you guessed it, dollars. This gives America what economists call exorbitant privilege. We can print money, run massive deficits, and the world just absorbs it, because everyone needs dollars. It's like being the only person at a party who brought the aux cord. Everyone has to be nice to you. But here's the thing about being the only person with the aux cord. Eventually, someone's going to bring a Bluetooth speaker. And that Bluetooth speaker, that's BRICS. Now, BRICS started back in 2009 as just an informal club. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Basically we're big, we're growing, and we're tired of the West running everything crew. For years, people dismissed them. Oh, they'll never agree on anything. China and India hate each other. Russia's economy is smaller than Italy's. This is just a photo op. And honestly, those criticisms were valid. For a long time, BRICS was more talk than action. But then 2022 happened. Russia invaded Ukraine. The West responded with the most aggressive sanctions in modern history. They froze $300 billion of Russia's foreign reserves. They kicked Russian banks off the SWIFT system. That's basically the global messaging network that lets banks talk to each other. And every country in the world that wasn't aligned with the West watched and thought, so they can just do that to us? They can just freeze our money whenever they want? That was the wake-up call. Because here's the thing about the dollar being the global reserve currency. It is not just convenient, it's leverage. And the United States has been using that leverage aggressively. Don't like what Iran is doing? Sanctions? Russia being annoying? Sanctions? China getting too powerful? Tariffs and more sanctions. And look, I'm not here to debate whether those sanctions are justified. That's a whole different video. What I'm saying is, the rest of the world noticed. And they started asking a very dangerous question. What if we just didn't need the dollar anymore? Which brings us to October 31st, 2025. On that day, a group called IRIAS, the International Research Institute for Advanced Systems, launched a pilot program for something called the unit. Now, I know what you're thinking. The unit? That sounds like a bad action movie starring someone who used to be famous. But don't let the boring name fool you. This thing is significant. Here's how it works. The unit is a digital trade currency, not a replacement for national currencies, but a settlement tool. Think of it like a translator. When Brazil wants to buy oil from Russia, instead of converting reais to dollars to rubles, which costs money and requires using the American financial system, they can settle in units. And here's the kicker. The unit is backed by 40% gold and 60% BRICS currencies. Gold. Actual physical gold. You know, the shiny stuff that humans have been obsessed with for 5,000 years? The thing your grandmother keeps telling you to buy? The reason we have that weird knockoff Mr. T at the mall? BRICS is saying, you want stability? You want something that isn't just backed by vibes and the US government's promise to maybe pay you back eventually? Here's gold. Now, let me be clear about what this is and isn't. This is not a BRICS currency that's going to replace the yuan or the rupee or the real. Citizens of Brazil aren't going to walk into a store and pay with units. That's not how this works. What this is an alternative plumbing system for international trade. Right now, if you want to do big international transactions, you pretty much have to go through the dollar-based system. SWIFT, correspondent banks, the whole thing. BRICS is building a parallel system. BRICS Pay connects Russia's SPFS, China's CIPS, and India's UPI. The unit gives them a neutral settlement mechanism, and it's all happening outside of American oversight. Let me give you some numbers that should make your eyebrows raise. Russia and China now conduct 90% of their bilateral trade in rubles and yuan. Not dollars, 90%. The BRICS Pay system has already reduced dollar usage in intra-block trade by roughly 2/3. The new development bank, that's basically the BRICS version of the World Bank, now issues 1/3 of its loans in local currencies. This isn't theoretical. This isn't coming soon. This is happening right now. And here's what makes 2026 particularly spicy. India just took over as BRICS president. Now, India is interesting because they're kind of the adult in the room. They're not as aggressive about de-dollarization as Russia or China. Their foreign minister literally said, and I quote, "The dollar as the reserve currency is the source of global economic stability. And right now, what we want in the world is more economic stability, not less." In other words, chill out, Vladimir. We're not trying to burn down the house. But here's the thing. India is still participating. They're still building out these alternative systems. They're still settling oil purchases from Russia in rupees and yuan. They're just being diplomatic about it. The 18th BRICS Summit is happening in New Delhi later this year. And the agenda? You guessed it. Expanding BRICS Pay, advancing CBDC interoperability, and pushing forward with the unit. Now, let's talk about how America is responding to all this. Not great, Bob. Not great. President Trump, look, regardless of what you think of him politically, has taken the subtle approach of threatening 100% tariffs on any BRICS country that tries to de-dollarize. 100%. That's not a typo. His exact words were basically, you want to mess with the dollar? Fine. Enjoy paying double for everything. And look, that might work in the short term. Some countries have already backed off. Indonesia's foreign ministry literally said, we're not interested in de-dollarization. And South Africa is being cautious. Even Brazil's president, who's been one of the most vocal critics of dollar dominance, had to tone it down. But here's the problem with the threat approach. It proves BRICS' point. Their whole argument is the US weaponizes the dollar. They use financial dominance as a tool of control. We need alternatives. And America's response is, if you try to build alternatives, we'll economically destroy you. Yeah, that'll convince everyone you're not weaponizing the dollar. It's like if your friend complained that you always control the TV remote, and your response was to threaten to break their kneecaps. Technically, you might keep the remote, but you've also proven their point about you being kind of a control freak. Now, let's look at some numbers that explain why this is happening now. The U.S. national debt just crossed $38 trillion. That's about $114,000 for every man, woman, and child in America. The debt to GDP ratio is now 120%, the highest since World War II. Janet Yellen, the former Fed chair and Treasury secretary, just warned that we approaching something economists call fiscal dominance. Now, what's fiscal dominance? It's the point where the government's need to finance its debt starts to override the Federal Reserve's ability to control inflation. Basically, the debt gets so big that normal monetary policy stops working. And here's the kicker. We're repaying $1 trillion per year just in interest on this debt. That's more than we spend on the military. That's more than we spend on Medicare. And it's only going up. Foreign investors look at this and think, maybe we shouldn't have all our eggs in the dollar basket. Meanwhile, BRICS countries are sitting on over 6,000 tons of gold collectively. China alone has been buying gold like it's going out of style, which, ironically, it's not. Gold prices are projected to hit $4,000 per ounce by mid-2026. They're preparing. They've been preparing for years. And the unit is just the latest step. Okay, now I need to pump the brakes a little bit, because I know what some of you are thinking. Oh my God, the dollar is dead. Sell everything, buy gold and canned beans. Relax. Take a breath. Let me give you the other side. Because here's the truth. De-dollarization is real, it's happening, and it's also really slow. The dollar is still involved in 89% of all foreign exchange trades. It's still 57% of global foreign exchange reserves. It's still the most liquid, most trusted, most widely accepted currency on Earth. You know how I said everyone's leaving the party? Well, they're leaving very, very slowly, like Irish goodbye that takes 3 hours slowly. Here's why. First, BRICS countries don't actually trust each other that much. India and China have literal border disputes. Brazil's economy is volatile. Russia is dealing with some stuff. These countries agreeing on a common currency is like getting a group of exes to plan a vacation together. Technically possible, but nobody's betting on it. India ES Commerce Minister actually said, and I love this quote, "Imagine us having a currency shared with China. We have no plans. It is impossible to think of a BRICS currency." That's not exactly a ringing endorsement. Second, there's no real alternative that can do what the dollar does. The yuan has capital controls. The ruble is the ruble. The rupee isn't fully convertible. Gold is great for reserves, but terrible for actual transactions. You can't exactly FedEx gold bars to pay for a shipment of iPhones. The dollar's dominance isn't just about America being powerful. It's about the depth and liquidity of U.S. financial markets. It's about the rule of law. It's about the fact that everyone else uses dollars, so you kind of have to as well. It's a network effect, and those are really hard to break. Third, even if countries want to de-dollarize, actually doing it is incredibly complicated. You need new payment systems, new banking relationships, new contracts, new everything. It takes years, decades even. The euro was supposed to challenge dollar dominance when it launched in 1999. It's now 2026, and the euro is still at about 20% of global reserves. It barely moved the needle. So yes, de-dollarization is real. Yes, BRICS is making progress. Yes, you should pay attention. But no, the dollar isn't dying tomorrow. This is a slow burn, not an explosion. So what should you actually be watching for? What are the signs that this is accelerating? Number one, oil trades. The petrodollar system, where oil is priced and traded in dollars, is the backbone of dollar dominance. If Saudi Arabia starts accepting yuan for oil, pay attention. If OPEC countries start diversifying their reserves away from dollars, pay attention. Energy is the key. Number two, central bank reserves. The IMF publishes data on what currencies central banks are holding. It's called COFER data. If you see the dollar share dropping below 50%, that's a major signal. Right now it's around 57%, down from 72% in 2000. Slow decline, but consistent. Number three, SWIFT alternatives. Watch for countries joining China's CIPS system or the BRICS Pay Network. Every country that joins is another node in an alternative financial system. The more nodes, the more useful it becomes, the more countries join. Network effects work both ways. Number four, gold purchases. Central banks have been buying gold at record levels. If that continues, or accelerates, it suggests they're preparing for a less dollar-centric world. Number five, U.S. debt dynamics. If the U.S. has a debt crisis, a failed treasury auction, or a serious loss of confidence in fiscal management, all bets are off. That's the scenario where de-dollarization could accelerate rapidly. So where does this leave us? Look, I'm not here to tell you the sky is falling. I am also not here to tell you everything is fine and you should ignore all of this. The truth is somewhere in the middle, which I know is unsatisfying. You clicked on this video for drama, not nuance, but nuance is what I've got. Here's what I believe. The dollar-dominated financial system that has existed since World War II is changing. BRICS is building alternatives. Countries are diversifying. The trend is real. But this isn't going to happen overnight. The dollar has enormous structural advantages. Network effects are powerful. And BRICS countries have their own problems and disagreements. What we're watching is not the death of the dollar. It's the birth of a multipolar financial world. A world where there are options. A world where the U.S. can't just sanction anyone. It doesn't like into oblivion without consequences. Is that good or bad? Depends on who you ask. If you're American, it probably means less influence, higher borrowing costs, and more inflation over time. If you're in the developing world, it might mean more options and less dependence on a system you have no control over. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. The British pound was the world's reserve currency once, then it wasn't. These shifts happened slowly, then suddenly. The BRICS unit launch wasn't the end of anything, but it might be the beginning of the beginning, and that, my friends, is worth paying attention to. If this video made you think, smash that like button. If it made you worried, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when I drop the next one. Drop a comment below. Do you think the dollar is in trouble? Are you buying gold? Are you just here because the thumbnail looked scary? Let me know.